Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 5 review of the Walking Dead spin off series, The Ones Who Live. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing the chronological order of the episode, and also my opinion on this episode. So this is the second to last episode before we finish off season 1, which I think some fans were speculating whether episode 6 it's going to say season finale or series finale. So if it says season finale, that means that there will be a season 2, which I think, according to how everything has been happening in this series, I think there is going to be a season 2. There has to be a season 2 because I don't think they can wrap up everything in one episode, and we just have one more episode left. Now, if it were to say season finale or series finale, that would most likely mean that they're gonna tie in together all of the spin-offs into the big Walking Dead universe once again. But there is a lot still going on. We still have we have the Daryl Dixon series, we have the Negan and Maggie series, right? So let's go back to episode 5. In episode 5, we start off with Father Gabriel. If you guys remember, Father Gabriel he's from the original Walking Dead series. We hadn't seen him in a long time. People were speculating in the trailer who that person was going to be that we saw in the dark coat, in the dark overcoat, walking towards the cabin. And that turns out to be Jadis, but we do have another character, which is Father Gabriel. Now, Father Gabriel is in this and I have to say, the whole time, the whole episode, they're in this mountainous range. They're in a type of out in the open in nature. The camera shots of nature, of the mountains, of the rivers, of the trees, of just overall nature. I think they were pretty cool shots. It looked amazing. And Father Gabriel is in nature. He's it starts off with him killing a zombie, and then he starts saying a prayer. So very Father Gabriel of him, I have to survive. I have to defend myself from the zombies, but I'm a father after all. I am a man of God, right? And he's always had his father a suit on, right? And that's where it starts, right? Then we cut over to Rick and Michonne, and this episode is going to do this throughout it. It's going to jump back from Rick and Michonne to Father Gabriel, where he's actually having a conversation with Jadis. Now, this episode, I would have to say, is really about Jadis. It's Jadis's journey. If you guys saw it already, spoiler alert. If not, pause the video. Jadis dies at the end, so we basically see Jadis's end, and kind of like her hero's journey. She finds redemption, and it's her battle of whether she's good or bad. And the whole time that we cut back to these scenes where she's talking to Father Gabriel, in a way she's trying to find herself. She's trying to find who she really is, to the point that she confronts Father Gabriel. But okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to Rick and Michonne. They're basically out in the middle of nowhere, and they're scouting. They were saying that this is kind of like their honeymoon phase, where they're just happy. They get very lucky, right? They find some pasta, and they start eating that pasta. They find this cabin reservation. I guess there are a number of cabins there. It's kind of like a hotel cabin thing, and they find this cabin. They decide to stay there, and while they're heading towards the cabin, they find this group of people. Right, it's 3 people. The Rick and Michonne saved them from some zombies that were around. They were attacking these people. And after that, these people are in need. Obviously, they're hungry. They're messed up. So Rick and Michonne decide to give them some of their pasta that they have. And then these guys, they're bad, so they want it all. They point the gun at them, and they're at Rick and Michonne, and they're like, "Hey, we want everything. Give us everything. This is survival." And Rick and Michonne are kind of no, like what the hell? So then they attack them. They end up kicking their asses, right? Rick and Michonne end up kicking these three people's asses, and after that they take their pasta back and they leave, right? And then we cut to a scene of 3 years ago, and now we have Father Gabriel in nature again, and he meets up with Jadis, or Jadis finds him, right? And this first there are three Father Gabriel and Jadis conversations in this episode. This is the first one of 3 years ago. Then we have a 2 years ago, and we have a 1 year ago scene. This 3 years ago scene, it's kind of weird. It's kind of like Jadis talking about what she did, but also talking about what she can't say that she did. So it's kind of like a confession, I would say. And it's very interesting because Father Gabriel, being a father, you go to a father to confess, right, in church. So in a way, we could assume that this is like Jadis's confession, like she's trying to talk about the bad things that she's carrying, the guilt that she's carrying, right? And Father Gabriel is there with open ears, right, and open arms. Okay, and then we cut back to another to the Rick and Michonne section of the episode, and in that scene, they're sleeping, and Jadis finds them, right? She points. She has both of them at gunpoint. Says, tie each other up, and then she starts basically going back and forth as to whether or not, I would say mentally, she starts going back and forth as to whether or not she should kill Rick and Michonne. Now, she makes up her mind, supposedly, and she says, yeah, I just wanted to thank you. I'm going to kill you now. All right. And you're kind of like, well, do it. Stop saying you're going to do it and just do it. But her actions, most of the time, the villain in a story says these type of things like, I'm going to kill you. And then just goes on a monologue, instead of actually killing the hero of the story. And you don't know why. And in this case, we know why. It's because Jadis isn't really all that bad. She isn't all the way there. She isn't all the way CRM. She isn't all the way Jadis. And that's why Rick keeps calling her Anne. Rick keeps calling her Anne. And as the episode progresses, he makes more and more emphasis on Anne, because Anne is the human side of Jadis. We can say it's the good side of Jadis. So he even talks about that in a given moment. He says, yeah, that's Anne. I know Anne is still in there, right? So that seems pretty interesting. Jadis ends up shooting Rick and Michonne, but she misses. They end up running out of the cabin, right, that they're sleeping in. And then we cut back to Jadis and Father Gabriel, which is 2 years ago scene. And this scene, they talk about marriage. Father Gabriel talks about how he wanted to marry Rick and Michonne, I guess, or something like that. He was going to give Rick a ring that he found. So they talk about marriage. Jadis continues to talk about the things that she can't talk about, but that she's done, that she's kind of like a bad person, I guess. And Father Gabriel basically says, like, I think this is, or maybe in the third scene, he says, like, come back with me, And Jadis is like, no, she's all caught up in what she's doing. She believes in her cause because she's lost her people. And she doesn't want to lose people. And she thinks that the CRM's approach is the best approach to saving the most people possible. Which, again, in this universe and just in life in general, it becomes an ethical problem, right? About saving the few or saving the many, sacrificing the few for the many or the many for the few, right? And this type of individualistic tendencies, like, egotistical tendencies, survival tendencies, or more of think of the other people type of tendencies, right? Like we see this with the people that Rick and Michonne come across, where they're just all ego, right? They're just all individual, like, we gotta think for ourselves. We gotta look out for ourselves. Fuck everybody else. And just the rest of the characters, like trying to, like, especially Jadis, trying to balance those two ideas of whether to sacrifice the few for the many or the many for the few, right? So then we cut back after the marriage talk with Father Gabriel and Jadis to a car chase scene, and they're basically Rick and Michonne are chasing Jadis. They all have cars, and they're going through the forest. Um, and first Rick and Michonne are chasing Jadis. Then Jadis hits the brakes, and then she starts chasing them, right? And then Jadis ends up crashing her car. She gets out of her car. Rick and Michonne go after the car, and on foot. And Jadis comes across the three people that had tried to rob Rick and Michonne, and she basically offers them like sanctuary, and like the guy says later on in the episode, like, I just need food and a pair of jeans or something like that. So she basically like talks them into helping her out. Mm, the scene cuts right before Jadis is looking at one of the people, at this girl, and she says, "You're tall," So her plan is to give that girl like her coat, her clothes, and for them to think that for Rick and Michonne to basically think that that is Jadis. Um, she ends up luring Rick and Michonne into a trap, into this type of cabin, bigger cabin. It was kind of like a museum or a store, I think. And when Rick and Michonne end up going into this place because they see that somebody's there, it turns out it's the three people and Jadis. Jadis is hiding, but the three people are basically like, we're gonna attack you because this person, Jadis, is telling us that she's gonna help us out, right? And remember, their mentality is just survival, survival. So Rick and Michonne end up kicking their asses for a second time. I'm like, these guys are useless. I don't know how they got so far into the zombie apocalypse, because Rick and Michonne end up kicking their asses like this. And I thought it was very interesting how Rick and Michonne attack like when you least expect it, right? Like these guys are like sitting there with spears and weapons drawn and everything up to Rick and Michonne, and they're like, yeah, we have to do this because we need to boom. And they just like cut them off mid-sentence and start beating their asses. I thought that was great, because that is the best way. You're not going to attack someone during a silence or during a break, like okay, now I'm gonna attack you, so you're prepared. You're gonna want to catch the people off guard. Most likely, when they're talking and they're distracted by their words, boom, just attack, right? So zombies enter. Zombies are all over the place, conveniently during these scenes, and they end up coming in and attacking and helping Rick and Michonne like kill off the people. There is a zombie made of stone earlier in the episode. I'm not really sure why that was. If you want to go ahead and tell me in the comments, what was that stone zombie about, and are there going to be more? Is that relevant to the series? But yeah, these zombies come in and they help Rick and Michonne, and then we cut back to another scene of basically a year ago, right? And Jadis said earlier that she killed her confidant, so you kind of get this doubt in your mind that maybe she killed Father Gabriel. And we go back to 1 year ago, where it's now like a ritual, like a routine, a habit that Jadis and Father Gabriel have, where every year on the same day they meet in this natural place, right near a river. They have a little tea going on. They're sipping their coffee or their tea. They're just having a nice chat. Like, I think they just spend the whole day together. And Father Gabriel talks about how he looks forward to those meetings with Jadis, like it's their little secret. And this is when she tries to kill Father Gabriel. So there's a zombie coming. She knocks Father Gabriel down, draws her gun, and you think like, did she kill him, right? And this is around the same time that she has a gun pointed at Rick, trying to kill Rick, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I think I don't have that right. But this is the moment when you get that sense, because up till now you don't really know what's happening, but now you say, oh, I understand. This episode is about Jadis. It's about Jadis's journey, because when she tries to kill Father Gabriel's like, you're not gonna do it. I know you, but go ahead. Let's see. Show me who you really are. And she doesn't do it. So that's that Jadis episode, Jadis journey vibe, right? That we get. And then we cut back to the scene where they're again in this stalemate between Jadis and Rick and Michonne, right? They're both hiding from each other, both people. both groups, but they're yelling at each other stuff, right? Like, um, like Jadis is telling Rick, like, just come back, and Rick and Michonne are like, you took our family away, and all this stuff, right? Um, and Jadis plays her card, which is, if I die, CRM's gonna know about you because there's a file that says everything about you guys in Alexandria, right? Her oldest card, the card that she has from the beginning of the series. And she comes out like very defiantly, right? Like, are you gonna kill me then? And Michonne's like, drawing her, she has her at gunpoint, but uh, there's a zombie coming, and Michonne ends up killing the zombie, right, to avoid killing Jadis. So she does this basically because of her people, right? Because to a certain extent, I think, in coming back from last episode where Michonne basically talked Rick into, after they lay it all on the table, and she was just basically like, "Come back with me, Rick." I think now Michonne is getting what Rick was trying to say, which is, we can't just get away from the CRM. Like, we have the Jadis problem, the file problem, and just the overall problem that the CRM may eventually, in some future, end up getting to us, right? Because they're expanding, they're growing, they want to rebuild a new world. Um, so there's that, right? And Michonne was just like, I don't care, let's go back to our family. But now I think she's understanding that because she's coming into contact directly with Jadis, who's saying, we're gonna kill you all if you guys try to escape, whatever. So they're like in this stalemate. Kind of reminded me of the last episode between Rick and Michonne, where they're just arguing and going back and forth about what to do. So yeah, what ends up happening, is, you end up thinking like, what's wrong with Anne, right? Or Jadis, like, she's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill you guys, but I don't kill you. Yeah, go CRM. But I guess she still has a weak spot for Rick and Alexandria and for all those people, like, especially after we see the Father Gabriel scenes. Like, how is she not gonna have some? She ends up kissing Father Gabriel too, so how is she not gonna end up like feeling at least the least bit of remorse or sympathy for Alexandria and Rick's group, right? So there's a standoff, and then they reach a deal where basically Michonne agrees to let Rick go back with Jadis to the CRM, and for Michonne to just go back to Alexandria, and everyone's gonna pretend that she died in the plane crash. She explains that Jadis explains that she got to Rick and Michonne because she followed the breadcrumbs. She insinuates, I think, that the yellow car which they drove off in was missing, or she saw that it was missing, and she also, like, did what I was saying last review video, which was for her to actually search around, try to find the bodies, try to find what happened, right? And she said that she found like food packages or the pasta packages or something like that. That wasn't very clear, but what I understood is that she did search for them, and then she just started following the trail which led to them in the cabin, right? So they're at the standoff, but they reached the deal. Rick's going back with Jadis to the CRM. Michonne's leaving, but then Jadis ends up pulling a gun on Rick after she had a second gun. So she had the first gun, she tosses it because Rick tells her to, so they're unarmed. But then she pulls another one, so she double crosses. But then Michonne comes out with a bigger gun, so there's a double cross, right? And I'm just like, what? Like, these guys are just all over the place, right? Like, they're saying they're not gonna go, then they are, and then it's like so Jadis ends up getting bit by a zombie, even though like Michonne and Rick try to help her out with the zombies, but she's bit, she's gonna die. So that's when she really like gets into the redeemer role persona of her saying like, you know what, like, go, I know you guys are good. So she gives them the file location, and she just says, just go take it, and just, you go back and live your dream, right? She tells Rick she mentions Rick's dream. I don't know how she knew about that, but she says, your dream is real, go get it, which I thought was an emotional moment. And she gives him the ring that Father Gabriel gave Jadis for Rick and Michonne to get married, which I thought was also emotional. So, she says like just go and live your happy life, and but don't go after the CRM, right? Like don't try to stop the CRM, because I guess she still kind of believes in the cause of the CRM. She explains that she didn't want to lose anybody really, right? So she was just trying to do what she thought was right, I guess. And Michonne's like, no, we are gonna go back there. We're gonna get the file. And her revolutionary thought is kind of like, which I thought was interesting. We're gonna turn the CRM's people against the CRM. Like they're gonna basically create a coup d'état or a revolution from the inside of the CRM, which I thought was interesting, and that is possible. I don't know how they're gonna do that. You can't really do that by force, or maybe you can. You need tactics, right? So yeah, that's how they're gonna stop the CRM, because Michonne is invested in the CRM emotionally, because they killed Nat, they killed the people that she was with. They've kept Rick all those years, right? So she has a bone to pick with the CRM. And then just towards the end, Rick ends up having to shoot Jadis in the head, because she's gonna turn into a zombie eventually. So like she dies, they leave, and then I'm like, yeah, Rick and Michonne have work to do, right? So what I'm saying is, in one episode, I don't think they're gonna be able to infiltrate the CRM. There are clips from next episode, in the trailer for episode 6. And we do see that they have to infiltrate. They're wearing the uniform again, but I don't think they're gonna get it all done in one episode, or I don't know. We have to wait and see. So yeah, they have work. But right before the episode ends, Rick ends up getting down on one knee, and he proposes marriage to Michonne, so they get engaged. And then just as the episode is about to end, we go back to Father Gabriel, which, remember, this was 1 year ago or 2-3 years ago when they were meeting. So it's the day again, and ironically, it's the day that Jadis dies. And Father Gabriel says something like, before he leaves, I think like 3 years ago when they're meeting, he said, like, Jadis asks him, like, are you going to be here next year? And he says, if I'm still alive. So, I don't know if Father Gabriel thought that Jadis didn't show up, because we see Father Gabriel waiting for Jadis, but she never shows up because she's dead. So I don't know if he thinks that she died, or maybe she just went full-blown bad and started doing bad things and just forgot about Father Gabriel. But I thought that was pretty cool. They show her trying to work through her issues, not really being a bad person, and you kind of understand that she's the person, as a type of pseudo villain, she's the person that's standing between Rick and Michonne, and maybe even Alexandria, going to full, and maybe like the whole Walking Dead main characters going to full-blown war with the CRM, right? Because that's what's going to end up happening. And Jadis was maybe trying to mitigate that, was trying to stand in between that, was trying to reconcile that to a certain extent, but that's too much of a task to try to stand between these two groups, right? Which I think to a certain extent the CRM may be a formidable enemy to go against the whole range of characters that The Walking Dead has had up to now. So yeah, let's see where episode 6 takes us. I think we're in good terrain, we're in good places. This episode was definitely more action. There was more moving around. I like the landscapes, I like the setting. So yeah, and we're going back to the CRM in episode 6. So next week I'm gonna make my conclusive remarks and also my general opinion of episode 6 to finish off this first and only season, who knows, of The Ones Who Live. So I'll see you next time. Peace.